I thought you were doing like, you know, this dance? That dance? Okay, let me just check it's the correct mic. Just before I start. Sorry, guys. I should be this traumatized.
I'm gonna get Izzy. I'm gonna get Izzy a shirt. Is this the correct mic?
Hello and welcome to Milliseconds Apart, a podcast where three friends chat about life, meaning and everything else in between. My name's Izzy. I'm a final year medical student at Cambridge.
I'm Ruri. I'm also a medical student and also a YouTuber.
And I'm Matt, and I'm just a cog in the wheel that is corporate America. That's the most truthful intro that I've given thus far.
So today I thought it might be a bit interesting to chat about birthdays. So a couple months ago it was my birthday. I turned 25 and I was just sort of reflecting on how I feel on my birthday. I actually tend to feel like a little bit melancholy on my birthday. I kind of get birthday blues, and I was sort of wondering, like, why do I feel this way? Does anyone else feel this way? So that's what I was hoping to chat a little bit about today. So I don't know, how do you guys usually celebrate your birthdays? What do you usually get up to?
So I think it's changed over the years, and here in the US, being 21, that's your big age, because that's the age that you can start to legally drink. Obviously, many people drink before that, but that's where you can go out to bars and you can drink in restaurants, and it is really strict all around the country. Pretty much wherever you're going to go, it's pretty strict. But after that birthday, I remember turning 21. I was the last of my friends because I'm younger than almost all of my friends that are in the same grade. And so it was my senior year of college. And after that birthday, it was kind of that thought of, well, what's the next one? You know, at 16, that's whenever we are able to start driving. So that's when we get our licenses. 18, not really big, at least in the community where I am. 21, where you can drink. Afterwards, it's all the same. And it became just this number. And I can resonate with what you talked about there, Izzy, that sort of melancholy feeling, more reflective, because I think about the last few years, part of it due to COVID, but then also just due to what I wanted. I spent my birthday by myself or with my family, and it was very much a quiet affair. I mean, it helps that I don't drink anymore, so it's not really the allure to go out or anything, but it's very much a reflective day of thinking about, okay, I've lived another year. What has it meant? What have I learned? What is really going on? And now, honestly, whenever I think about it, it's more so, all right, it's another year closer to death. And I know that sounds really calming or it sounds really sobering, but that's how I think about it, that, all right, this is just another one gone. And since I've realized my mortality, my whole shift on birthdays is one where it's like not about the presents or anything like that. It's about a time to reflect on what's going on with life.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned like that. In COVID, things have also changed, because for me, this last birthday that I had, I also had exams like a week after my birthday or something like that. So I just sort of had a very chill one with my family, and it was like the first time in years that I'd had such a like low-key birthday. And I think that just extra space there to kind of think about things as well was almost a bit shocking. Like weirdly, it was a bit surprising. What about you, Ruri? How do you usually like to celebrate your big day?
For me, I think when before high school, we used to celebrate it pretty like a big party. My mom used to make all of the cakes and foods and all that stuff, and we used to bring our friends, and we used to do 2 times, like birthday party 2 times, one for my Turkish friends and one for my Japanese friends. So we used to do that, and it was all fun. But until like getting in high school, my exams were always on 4th of April, always the math exam, the hardest one. So I think I didn't really celebrate in high school. But like for me right now, I think the biggest birthday was the 18th one, because that's the legal age in Turkey. And the reason why it was so important for me is that my mom always told me that you cannot get pierced before 18. Because in Japan, there's like old belief that if you get your ears pierced, you're outsider, or I don't know, kind of like a bad girl and something. So I was so excited for that.
Classic Ruri.
Because in Turkey, there's some families that like, you know, girls get pierced at the age of 1 or something, because that is like considered something good culturally, or religion, in a religious way. I don't know. But I always wanted to get pierced. So 18. My birthday was really big. But other than that, I actually don't really value my birthdays. I would rather use that time to appreciate my mother because without her, I wouldn't be in this world. Of course, my dad too, but like she's the one who struggles. So, but I don't really value my own birthdays. I would rather value others' birthdays, even though I forget them. Yeah.
That's a great point. Honestly, I've done it a little bit, but not as much. Where it needs to be a celebration of mom.
Yeah.
All of us had a mom, whether we have a relationship with our mom now or not. But that thought of, wow, like we did nothing but just show up. We just showed up for the party. Whereas like mom actually struggled through, and to have that shift. Yeah. And I think I'm with you, Ruri, where the shift is focused away from me when thinking about birthdays. Where I remember even a few years ago, there was a certain restaurant in Chicago where you could get whole animals. So we got a whole boar, or maybe it was a goat. We got a whole animal, and then so it was all of us coming together. Other years it was going to apple picking with some of my closest friends and such. And now that I think about it, all I really care about on the birthday is like, or maybe the reason why I find it so valuable now isn't because it's, celebrate me, where's my presents, where's this, but it's more so it's that chance of, there's certain friends that we really do love, but we don't get to interact with them all that much for whatever reason. That's the opportunity in that day. And we do the same for those friends too, right? How many times have we seen a friend or we haven't talked to them in a whole year, but we can at least greet them for their birthday and touch base, and maybe that sets off a whole new relationship. So I think that to me is more the significance moving forward, as opposed to like making it, as we were whenever we were kids, a celebration of us.
Yeah, this idea of like celebration of mum as well is like I guess because in a way, like you're saying, Matt and Ruri, we just showed up for the party, and that we didn't choose, like we didn't actively choose to be brought into the world. Yeah. We just were like a passive being brought into the world, little like bundle of joy or whatever. But like it's the mums who are hopefully most mums get the choice whether they want to have their child or not, and go through that suffering and like opt in to all of that in order to be able to bring us here today. So that's a really good point. Something I should think about more on my birthday. But yeah, for me, I guess like as a child, my parents would organize like little like birthday parties. I remember they would invite everyone, like a bunch of my friends from school, over to my house for like a big like birthday thing with like loads of cake. And I think when I was a child, my favorite food was was like McDonald's or something like that, like the classic, like the food that you're not allowed to eat every day because it's unhealthy. It's like the food that becomes like the best food in the world. So then we would like, I don't know, order some nice junk food that's very delicious, and I would often choose a random theme for my birthday. So I remember one year, I think when I was 5 or 6 years old, I decided it was ladybird themed, and I printed out like 100 different pictures of ladybirds and like cut them out individually and stuck them all around the house. And that was like my birthday celebration. Along with like all my school friends coming over. But then like as a teenager, as an adult, it doesn't feel like as light anymore somehow for me. I start to get more reflective, and like you were saying, Matt, it's more like a kind of reminder of the passage of time, and this like concept of like mortality. Like it's sort of like, we don't know how many birthdays we're going to get, but it's a limited number. It's finite in some way. And I just sort of get thinking about that a little bit.
Yeah. So there's that mindset, right? And it depends on the different country that we're in of the birthdays that you look forward to. But the reality is after that, like the looking forward isn't in a positive way often. It's that idea of, oh my gosh, I'm about to turn 30, or I'm turning 40, or I'm turning 50, or I'm turning 60, as opposed to the excitement of, I can't wait to be this age. So it's interesting whenever that flips. And I think a lot of the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, right, in thinking here, it's different based on the country you're in, based on legal age, usually of driving and drinking. Right, those are really the big things. Or it's like to be able to get like piercings and such, right? So like there's those thoughts where, all right, for some people, right, in the U.S. reaching for 21, in other places it's reaching for 16 or 18, and then after that even the mindset of, all right, so now we're on the decline, or even anything like that where there's nothing more to look forward to. And I guess on this thought, this has to do with age and such. What age do you both think you're going to peak?
I always told myself it's 30. I always told myself that before 30, I will actually peak in my career. I knew that it's not going to be like med school, because until I graduate med school, I think, 26, and then I'm going to do my, training. Yeah, I will be like past 30, but from from my childhood. I always knew I'm gonna be doctor plus something, and I will like peak it at 30, or even actually made it till 30. So in my like every single birthday, I tell myself you have 10 years left, and in April I'm gonna tell myself you have 9 years. So in this 9 years, I will do my best, and I'm planning to retire around like 40 or something. So like 30 is some sort of like a goal that I always set myself. I don't know why 30, but it's 30.
Yeah, I never really thought about like peaking in life. I almost like visualize it more as a kind of a graph rather than a peak, like, almost like a plateau. And that maybe that's just how I like to...
Until the sudden drop off.
Yeah, until it's like, you know, like, I don't know, just boom, geriatric. It's just like... no, but I think I always pictured myself kind of amping up in my 20s, and then maybe like around just before 30, like reaching some kind of plateau-y kind of peak for my 30s. And like maybe like early 30s, like hit that kind of peak plateau. And then maybe like in 40s and 50s, like chill out and wind down gradually. But...
yeah,
I think it really depends on what area of life you're thinking of, because this is maybe in terms of career, but if it's in terms of even just something, a more soft kind of goal, just being comfortable in yourself and just having that sense of self-esteem, I feel like that's just going to build over time quite a bit, in that every year I feel a little bit more comfortable in my own skin and a little bit more sure of who I am becoming and who I am and who I want to be. So I think that keeps on building.
That's a really good point. I've never thought about that, because my thinking was more with regards to, say, health. So you can have health, and even those are different, where you can peak in health of, say, you're a runner. All right, maybe you're going to peak in health at a certain age, whereas if you, say, lift weights, you're going to peak in health in a different age before you start to see a decline based on the activity. And then same with career, where there's going to be certain careers, and maybe that's even the peak for your first career, and then the peak for your second and third, whatever those are. But I hadn't thought about those sorts of factors like what you mentioned there is, where it's, you can go all the way with self-esteem and self-understanding and self-knowledge till your dying day. Maybe that's your peak. And I'd never thought about those sorts of factors, that they aren't necessarily as inhibited by our bodily functions, where there's areas of life that we can essentially keep getting better at until the day that we die, which I think is actually a very uplifting thing, because it's never going to be the case anymore, or at least in my head, it'll never be the case anymore of, well, I'm getting too old for this, I'm getting too old for that, or what's the point? Because we're always on the up and up.
Yeah, I think shifting the focus onto these things that don't really have a kind of expiry date, in a way, is a nice way to not get too afraid of time passing. Because like you say, like sometimes people feel like life peaks, I don't know, at whatever age, and then after that age it's like, what now? kind of thing. Or like, oh, I can't grow beyond this point. But I think there's an amazing capacity of our minds to continuously change and grow in subtler ways, or in specific ways that might not be as highly productive and all of this high energy kind of vibes, but are still very valuable in just the experience of being human.
Yeah, actually, I changed my mind on quite a lot of my like goals. My 30 was that like goal point. So basically, I'm actually going to explain a little bit about my like 30 milestone. So my brother, he always wanted to have kids pretty like soon. He wanted to have kids and married and like a happy family. His main goal in life is to have a happy family and be a very good dad. He has been telling that like for years and years. Even
That's
like
so sweet.
he was like 10 and he started to like talk about this. And I've always been telling to my family that I'm gonna be like a very successful, like very famous person. You're gonna see me in like magazine covers and all that stuff. And we actually said it at some point, because when I'm 30, my brother's gonna be around like 35. So, and he's planning to have kids in like, I don't know, a couple of years or something. So at that point, his kid's gonna be grown, and I want to become that like badass, successful, like crazy auntie that has like these, what is that, like litter glows and like cruisers and like company. And I want to like be the best aunt ever. So But like that is the entering point to my like crazy aunt, I don't know, phase. And from that, I want to actually become better and better every year. So I decided to not peak at my 30s, but enter that stage in 30s and improve every single year till my death. So I'll be that crazy auntie. So stay tuned. Yeah.
I'm glad you changed that, because I was thinking, I was like, man, I hope Ruri doesn't peak at 30. Like, there's so much, hopefully, there's so much life left.
Yeah. Actually, like, I wanted to express in a different way, but then kind of like I just changed my mind. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we're always allowed to change our mind. That's always an option.
Well, and I think that's one of the important things. That's what I love most about the conversations that we have, and I'm glad that we're now putting them into a podcast form, because changing our mind, in my head, should be the norm.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
we're constantly getting new information, even in the span of 20 minutes, right? We have a thought, a friend or somebody that we know, a stranger or somebody we maybe an enemy, brings up some piece of information. Well, it's okay to shift. And it's kind of that question of like, why do we try to hold on so much to our first opinion when our first opinion is the one where we have the least amount of information, right? Like, why is there, it's so valued that, oh, you stayed true to your word, but that staying true to your word is so different when you're making a commitment to somebody versus whenever you're just getting new info and you say, oh, I'm going to change this idea and I'm going to change the way I live my life, right? And like, I love that our dialogue, and hopefully everybody who's listening as well, it makes it so that you can have this mentality. When you're having a conversation with somebody, the ego is the thing so often that is holding us back from changing our minds, because we say, no, we already declared this. We make it a part of our identity. But none of these have to be a part of our identity, right? We can keep that detachment. We can keep that growth mindset in that sense. And then, shift. And like, we're actually better off for it.
Yeah, actually, I got like from somebody else a comment that was saying that you're going to change every single your opinion about what you're like very comfortable and confident about in like 5 years and all that stuff. It was like more not hate, but negative comment. But I actually thought that it's a very positive comment and replied to that like, thanks, I wished you, because every single year I change my opinions about like life, and my personality changes too. So like during my birthdays, I realized that like when I compare to my 19-year-old self, it was really different. It was so different. My mom gets annoyed about that because I change my opinions very often. Like in 10 minutes or so, I change my opinions about peak point of my life. So yeah, I think it should be the norm too, because the scariest thing is not changing, in my opinion, because the world is changing. You're changing. And everybody around you is changing. And if you're staying at like same point, I think it's so boring and also scary.
Yeah, I think that's pretty self-aware actually, because there's almost this like conception that at some point you are like fully grown and you have formed your opinions. And like some people kind of hold this idea that, oh, like from now on, this is who I am. This is my personality. These are the things I like. These are the things I don't like. I'm going to get a tattoo of like what things I like are on my body, and I'm going to love it forever because this is who I am forever. But most of the time, like we do change. And every couple of years, I look back and I'm like, my gosh, I was such a different person. And I hope that like never stops, because I think that evolution is part of the interesting stuff in life, like being able to shape who you are and choose who you are, and feed your mind with the books that you choose and the meditations that you do, or the people you talk to and the relationships you build. And that's just always evolving, and being open-minded to that and understanding that, yes, like other people change, but you also change, and this is not going to stop. This is a process that will go on for as long as we're alive. Gives that sense of clarity, and means that you are not surprised when things have changed. You're like ready to like accept it and ready to respond in a good way, rather than being like, oh my God, things are changing.
Yeah, I like that point too about the evolution that we see. And when you said that, I started to think about what are ways that we can track that evolution, because we can go back and we can imagine what we thought about at certain ages. We can, if we have journals or if we have videos that we made, we have things that we created during those times, we can get a glimpse. But is there a more purposeful way that we can track the evolution over time, where, and I think kind of in this mindset, because it's the new year, really reflective, but can we also do that around our birthdays? You mentioned, Izzy, that this past birthday for you was the most reflective one. Can we actually come up with our own structure, though, where we fill in, maybe at first it's filling in that area of what are my favorites right now? Favorite piece of music? Who are my best friends? What are the books that I'm reading? Those things. So you get a snapshot, but then also maybe it's writing a letter to ourselves. It's some sort of reflection on who we are, because then we can actually truly track the evolution, since our memories are so fickle and often incorrect. But if we set aside a structure, imagine what that would have been like if we could look back to our 10, 11-year-old selves. Then if our 15, 16-year-old selves, like imagining what our life was like maybe it's describing what a day is, an average day is. And over time, we can see that evolution and appreciate it, that growth for what it is, right? And so then it's also that maybe it's my mindset so much right now when it comes to birthdays is how to make them not seem negative, where it's like that feeling of, oh, I'm getting so old, where instead it's shifting that perspective of look at the growth that has happened since the last one and the last one and the last one.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I think after this last birthday where I did feel like that the birthday blues hit me, and I was like, you know what, actually, like part of the reason why I feel kind of melancholy and a bit empty about this is because I'm looking back at and thinking about all the things that I haven't achieved yet, and it's almost in a kind of negative mindset, like what's missing, rather than actually like what actually have I gained. And when I the next day I sort of thought about actually like the things that I have done in the last year and the ways I've grown and things I've learned, people I've met, like you two, and all the things I've tried out have been, I kind of didn't notice it over time. But if I look at the whole year, I'm like, wow, this has actually been a great year. Like so much has changed. I'm on that path of evolution. This is me changing. I've used this year in a positive way, and it's not all wasted. In my kind of negative thinking mode, I was like, oh gosh, the years are just whizzing by, where did the year go? But then zooming in and like looking at those journal entries that I'd made and looking at the things I'd actually done, writing them out, so actually I'm not doing too bad,
Yeah, I think it's taking that balance between, yes, we want to strive for more with regards to growth. And I think that that's actually going to be another episode that we're going to talk about, are the goals that we set out for ourselves. But having a detached mindset, both to the successes that we've had and the quote unquote failures, where, I think maybe being growth oriented people, we're so often going to look at the areas where we didn't hit our aspirations, where we're not where we expected to be. But just the same, we can also take the time to look at the areas where we exceeded our expectations. And I think that the latter are a little bit harder because we don't recognize those as much, because those just became normal. Those just became a part of our day-to-day lives, as opposed to the things that we keep striving after. Those are those unknowns still. And so how we find both of those, one, to keep striving forward, but then also to appreciate where we are right now. Yeah,
and I guess also like just remembering that in some ways just living through life and just surviving and getting by, especially in like a global pandemic, is an achievement in its own right. And just being yourself and staying relatively whole through all of this is also something to be proud of.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. That's one of the things I always write about. Like, hey, like I made it, right? I made it to another year. Like that's success in and of itself. You okay, Iz?
Yeah, there's a fire alarm going off. Give me 1 sec.
Yeah. Izzy, are you okay? Is the house okay?
Yeah, I think the house is mostly not on fire. So
mostly. That's it. That's okay. As long as it's only mostly.
Yeah. Majority of the house is still intact.
There's something, Ruri, you brought up before about your brother, and you brought it up with regards to family and having a family at a certain age. Being able, setting these benchmarks. Do both of you have benchmarks that you still have set out for certain ages of, oh, by this age I want to do this, by this age I want to do that, both professionally, personally? And then how has that changed over the last few years?
Okay, so I actually have those. I actually have a lot of those. I used to have a lot, but now it's, I think, only one, and I feel like, okay, let me share that. Okay, so I think from growing up, the economical situation of our home is kind of like a little fragile because of the Turkey's currency and all that stuff. So I think from my childhood, I'm really tied to money and the importance of money and financial situations, because that affected my family quite a lot, and my family's mood quite a lot too. So from my childhood, I always used to tell myself that I'll be a millionaire until 30, but it's now went to 23. So I have like 21, 22, yeah, 3 years until there, and I think that is the only some sort of like a set point that I have currently, and also entering the cool auntie phase around 30. And I think these are the two. They're really maternalistic, but at the same time, it has like a very deeper meaning for me. In terms of money, we can, I think, talk about being rich and the importance of money in another episode. But yeah, it's not that maternalistic actually. There's a deep meaning to money and why I'm so tied to that. But my goal is to be a millionaire in 3 years, I think I would say. Yeah, what about you, Z?
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. You have a very like clear idea of where you want to be at 23. I feel like for me, I don't really have a very specific like year that it must be, but I kind of generally have a kind of more loose idea of where I want to be vaguely in this like 5-year window, for example. So I guess in terms of like, I'm maybe a bit similar to your brother in that to me, family is very important. And I feel like that is something that you need to plan ahead for. And especially like as a woman, unfortunately, however much we don't want it to be the case, there are some biological facts of life. And so obviously that has a time and a place, it has a season. So that's something that I do think about, but I don't really have any specific ages that I'm like, I must be XYZ by this age. So how about you, Matt? Do you have any of these kind of
Yeah, one I wanted to
milestones?
say, I always appreciate like the honesty and the openness. We're with that, right? Where sometimes it can be tough because we start judging because we're like, oh, that's not what you're supposed to go after.
Yeah.
But it's like, what is supposed to? We all get our own choices and we all have our own reasons why. And I think that getting to talk to both of you about like the topic of money or about other things that we have struggled with throughout our lives, it makes the things that are on the surface, which could just be surface level, have so much more depth and more meaning, right? Where you really hear that why there. Izzy, I agree with yours that I am very much focused on, the family bit. But again, I think it's also being a guy, there is very different timeline for things, right?
Yeah.
That's the reality of things. And
It's so sad.
it is, I mean,
It's so
and that's
sad.
that part where like life really isn't fair. Like that's just one of the big
Yeah.
injustices of life. But it kind of is what it is there. But actually, this has changed a lot for me over the last, I'll call it 5-6 years. And just based on, I think so much is based on our social circles and based on our communities of what is the expectation. And growing up in the Midwest of the United States and not in a big city. So the closest city is St. Louis, which is like, I don't know, somewhere in the 30 to 50 ranking of size in the States. And so I'm in one of the suburbs. And the expectation in the area, or at least how I interpreted it, is a lot of people find their high school sweethearts, and so they marry the person they met in high school. And whether it's like they go to different schools, they go to the same school, maybe they just stayed in the area. But there's this thought that I remember having where I wasn't going to go live in a city, a big city. I never imagined I would. I would marry my high school sweetheart. I would go to school. I would, I get married soon after, right? So that's what sets you at like 24. Soon after, a couple years after school, have kids soon after that, buy the house and all of that. Like all of that before the age that I am now, because I am 27 now. And all of that shifted. Part of it because I went to school and my high school girlfriend dumped me, but that's okay because that was all the best moving forward. But it was that change, that shift of, life opened up the possibilities. And after that, most of my best friends are married or they're engaged, they're buying their houses and such, but it's helped me realize that I don't want that right now. And I think that was where I was able to separate that expectation of, okay, by these ages, you're going to do all these things. And start to ask the question, wait, do I actually want that? Or is that just the default path? So for me, like all that to say, coming back to this idea of, well, do I have any more expectations? The answer is no, because I think that if I've learned anything from the past year, you never know what to expect. And I think that maybe I'm also in a different situation than both of you, where I'm working full time. So at any point, like, I could go find another job, go shift around, like go move countries. Like, there's not those thoughts anymore of, oh, I need to do one more year here for school, or I need to finish this placement. And so that kind of opened everything up to, I have no idea what's coming. All I know is at some point I do want to build a family, and it does take that time and effort, but the ages, they're all the same now.
Actually, when talking about the default, I think I'm the opposite of yours. When it comes to like cultural expectations and like family expectations, most of the time I don't want them because they are defaults. And I feel like when it comes to marriage, I don't know my like opinion. It's not about like me not wanting the marriage or something, but me not really appreciating because it's default. Like my grandma told me that like you're gonna graduate from med school and then marry someone else and have kids, and I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that because you said that. Now it's not good anymore. So
This is rebellious Ruri.
and like my grandma was pretty shocked because, you know, she's a very traditional Japanese woman. Anyways, but you know, when it becomes a default, I just want to challenge it and not do it because they told this. And now I don't know anything about marriages, if I want it or don't want it just because everybody's doing it. So yeah.
Have you always been that way? Where
Yeah.
it's always been rebelling against the norm?
Yeah. It was always like that, and it's hard. It's hard and it's challenging me. But yeah, I think my family understood my personality at a very young age because I was like that for my whole life. So now, like, everybody is okay with that, but I don't know. I just don't understand my feelings about these topics anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really interesting, actually, the difference between you guys in how we interact with this idea of a kind of default expectation. Yeah. For me personally, I've never really felt a huge amount of pressure to necessarily go for the classic default. I guess because, like, for you, Matt, it sounds like where you grew up was sort of like this whole high school sweetheart thing as a kind of classic thing that would happen. But for me, I grew up mostly in London, where there's quite a lot of different lifestyles and life paths. So I've never really felt like an expectation or like a particular like default that I've had to adhere to. And I think going to an all-girls school, which had sort of slightly like feminist undertones as well, like it was very much like kind of like you can choose to have a career if you want, like you can choose to be a mother and a family woman if you want, like sort of vibes.
Love that.
For me, it was more like, oh God, what do I want to do then? And just trying to picture my life in the future and what might bring me that sense of like meaning and fulfillment. And I think for me personally, that's more in terms of like family values. But again, we're all open to change here.
Yeah.
So see how that evolves. So before we wrap up, I guess maybe it'll be interesting to hear about you guys' expectations on your birthday. Like, do you expect presents or cards or like a big party, or what are your expectations?
So there's like some sort of tradition in our house is that when it hits the like 12 a.m. Like point, my mom runs to my room and hugs me and says happy birthday. And that's something that she does to my brother and me. And in her birthday, we do it to her. And I'm just like expecting in my room, and I always pretend that I'm sleeping so that my mom would wake up me and say like happy birthday, I'm glad that you are in this world. And yeah, and I would thank my mom that, yeah, thank you for giving birth to me. And that is like something that we do every single year. So I think this is the only expectation that I have. And in terms of gifts, I think, yeah, my family gives me gifts, but it's like not in April. They would give it like throughout the year and says that like, okay, this is your birthday gift. So we will consider it as a birthday gift. But I would actually appreciate a proper like birthday party, because I feel like my friends after pandemic were like all over the place. A lot of people went to different countries and I don't see them anymore. So if I would do some sort of like a birthday party, I think that would be super fun. And I also love really gifts. So if you're watching this episode and want to give me a gift in April, I'm open for that. Yeah.
Izzy, I feel like there's some subtleties there that Ruri was like, I really like parties.
Really?
So, all right. Looks like we're in the party planning committee's got to come.
I really, really like birthday parties.
Yep. I don't know, Matt. Did you get the message? I didn't know.
I don't know if I'm picking up what she's putting down.
I'm not really sure. Yeah, I'm not really sure what she means by
My friends are all over the place. Parties. April.
Yeah, all over the place, but only milliseconds apart on this podcast.
So you would say that, but you won't say the pun? Man, if we're leaning in, we gotta lean in all the way.
Oh no, it's too cringe. I can't.
Oh, you have lean in is. On that point about expectations, yeah, that's changed. I remember as a kid, and honestly, it was just being spoiled and entitled of like, oh yeah, can I just have this for my birthday? Can I have that for my birthday? And I think it's definitely changed as I've been a working adult, where I don't need my parents to buy me anything. If I want something, I'll go buy it. I would much rather from all of friends, like whether it's friends or family, just write a card, right? Give a call, like those sorts of connections, because to me, those are the ones that are more priceless. Those mean so much more. Whereas just a gift, so often I won't even use it later on, or, years from now, it will be useless. Whereas those sentiments, kind of going back to this idea we were talking about before, those are a moment in time. Right? Those are like, it's that specific birthday, that specific time. How do we feel about each other? And I think that looking forward, when family members end up dying, or when friends maybe aren't friends anymore, you can still cherish that for that piece. It was a beautiful thing. So it's not an expectation, but that is, for me, what I appreciate most on birthdays.
Yeah, when it comes
what
to
about
gifts.
You, Ez?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
When it comes to birthday gifts, I have a very different opinion from you, Matt. So when it comes to birthday gifts, I really love them because as a gift, I would appreciate something that I wouldn't buy. For example, I always wanted Kindle All Assist, but it's like $300 or something, and spending on that, it's not like, I don't know, I wouldn't buy that to myself. Or like a lip balm from a very luxurious brand, or like body creams and stuff. I wouldn't buy that, as well as like bath bombs and these stuff, but I would appreciate it if it was like a present. So as a present, I would appreciate things that I wouldn't buy. A little message, anyways.
Yeah, all about the subtle messaging. I guess for me, my expectations have also changed a lot over time. I think mostly like the most important thing for me is to generally feel valued and like to feel like I can spend time with people that I care about. Yeah, I think in the past I used to go for more like kind of big birthday things, but I think I'm moving towards actually preferring something a bit smaller and just being able to feel valued, whether that's in cards or just people's presents or in like, gifts. It's all kind of a way of communicating that, which makes me feel special.
I love this. I love that we just threw all these things out for all of our loved ones. If any of our loved ones are watching, you know what to do.
Actually, a birthday gift idea for our viewers. One of you guys last year gifted me a Audible like book, like card something for my birthday, and I use it and I really appreciate it. So if you're watching this video and if you want to give me a birthday gift as a viewer, I would appreciate the Audible book card. Yeah.
And you know what? Shout out to that viewer.
Yeah, I love you. We're actually still in contact and we talk pretty frequently. Yeah, anyways.
Oh, wow. That's a really nice idea for a gift, I guess. Because it's something that... Was it like a credit? Like an Audible credit?
Yeah, exactly. Not book card credit.
Oh, nice. Because then you can like choose like anything you want to like expand your mind, expand your horizons, listen to an audiobook. So with that, I think that's a wrap on this episode. So thank you so much for listening and joining us in this discussion of the role of birthdays and what they mean to us. So to the listeners, we would like to know if you can just leave us a comment and let us know what your birthday means to you and how you like to celebrate it. We'd love to hear from you. And also leave any questions or other comments below, and we may answer them in a future podcast. So with that, thanks so much for listening, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Can I eat a little soup? My mom brought me a soup during our recording. I hope you guys didn't notice that.
That's so cute.
Nice.
My room smells so much soup right now.
What kind of soup is it?
I don't know. I can see it. Wait.